really great to be here. It's difficult times, but I think also it's very exciting times. And really excited to talk about AI. Before I do this, there's a message I wanted to share with you, and I brought with me. Let's have a look at it.
Hello and welcome to the Voices Conference in New York. It's great to be among so many talented thinkers and innovators. I hope that this event will be a source of inspiration and creativity for all of us.
Well, obviously not the real Steve Jobs. That picture is AI generated. The voice is AI generated. The interesting thing is 1 year ago, I was standing also on that stage. 1 year ago, this would have been impossible, right? This about took me 15 minutes to do it. So that's the reality of AI. And typically when people see this, there's two sorts of emotions. One is they're excited about what's happening and what's possible. And the other one, to be honest, we are scared and we are concerned. And we say, like, what does it mean for us, for our personal lives, for our business lives, for society? And what I want to do today is talk a bit about AI, debunk it, take away the fog, and say what's actually happening there, right? So 3 things I brought for you. One is, let's look at it and see what's happening and how is this working. Second, what's the impact on communications? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities for communications? And there are both. And third, I brought 5 concrete steps, 5 concrete things that you can do to come in front of the wave. So let's start with what's happening right now. And I want to share a personal story about when my personal, let's say, AI moment first really hit me. This is 2016. The man you see there is Lee Sedol. Lee Sedol, back then, was the world's best Go player. Go is a strategic game, a board game. Go is way more complicated than chess. That's why until 2016, no machine was ever able to beat a human. Like many years before, Deep Blue by IBM has beat a chess player, so machines were already much better in chess. But in Go, this seemed like years out. Experts, including him, said at least another 10 years until an AI can actually beat a Go player. In 2016, big showdown, he played against the best Go software at that time from Google, and it was called AlphaGo. Who remembers that? Just a second. Great. So 5 games, they played 5 games. AlphaGo did win 4 games. He did win 1 game. We know now that this is the last game ever a human has won a Go game against AI, by the way. This game got NFT'd last year because it's so rare, right? What happened and what's behind this is something that we call predictive AI. And what predictive AI actually does, and what AlphaGo does, it analyzed all Go games ever in history that were available and tried to learn from them. That's part one. And that's what typically AI is doing. I try to learn from existing data. And then it's doing another thing. It starts to play a lot of games against itself. And with these games, it learns. That's why we talk about machine learning. So it keeps learning and learning. By the way, the successor of AlphaGo is AlphaZero, and Google built this afterwards. And they said, forget the 1,000 years of Go history that humans have played. Just play against yourself. It played against itself 36 hours. And then played 100 games against AlphaGo, and it won 100 games. So the AI just needed 36 hours of playing against itself to erase 1,000 years of human history of Go playing and be a better strategy, right? So that was a huge moment for AI. Afterwards, a Google engineer from Google DeepMind said, we landed AI on the moon. And that's the moment when predictive AI became mainstream and in many ways, and it's something we see today in our daily lives. I want to give you a couple of examples. If we think about social media, TikTok was the first platform to actually adopt predictive AI to say, I want to build better, not sure if it's better, but it's more addictive, what they are doing. I want to have more addictive streams for people to stay longer on my platform. With that, they've risen in size of the user base, and they forced every other social media platform to do the same. So all the social media platforms, as we've witnessed in the last couple of years, they moved from a sort of friend and connection model to a AI-based content model to have just show more content, right? So not really sure if that's all good, what AI did here, but it entirely changed the game in social media. AI is helping weather forecasts, especially severe weather events, breaking them down locally to really understand what could happen and trying to do this more in the future. So instead of 1 or 2 days, having this 2 even more days. So quite a positive thing. Every time you swipe a credit card today, there will be a predictive AI somewhere in the background and trying to understand, is this a good transaction or is this actually fraud? Every time, or in most of the cases, when, the one was medical imaging. A lot of the medical imaging is happening where AI is helping doctors to understand and see illnesses and see patterns. And in general, there's a lot of pattern recognition being done with pictures in the past couple of years. One of the main drivers is, again, social media, with all the platforms where like tons, millions of pictures are uploaded. You're trying to moderate. So this means you want to have a pattern and understand what are these pictures actually all about? Can I allow them on the platform or not? So a lot of research has been done here in the predictive AI space. And it got so good to a level that if you look at this picture, that's a real picture of a real man. And we can ask predictive AI, what do you see on that picture? And predictive AI will be able to give us a pretty amazing detailed description on what's on the picture. It can understand this picture. And what happened now, pretty much last year, 2 things. One is these models got better and better, and the other one is computing power increased and increased. And at some point, it was possible to ask an impossible question. If we can predict what's on a picture, why can't we take this description and ask the AI to build a picture out of this? So that was the moment when we say, from predictive AI to generative AI, is this actually possible? And we all know now it is possible. That's generative AI. The one is a real picture, the other one is an AI-generated picture. And this also helps to explain why it feels to all of us like this is this big wave now. Like, where is this coming from? AI is there all around, but it was in the background transactions, right? Now it's kind of stepping out of the dark into the light, and we see all of this because it's generated. All the content is there, and it was there all the time, but now it's in a stage where it's actually making a big difference in many other ways that we see. And there's no good or bad between predictive and generative. Predictive is in way more processes already today, and generative will kind of do a lot of these things as well as we go along. And I want to talk about 2 main directions of generative AI now. We talked about ChatGPT already quite a lot, so let's look at text and ChatGPT, and let's look at media. Because I think for communications, I would say as a general direction, the text one is quite interesting, much more upside than downside. On the media side, different story. So let's look at this step by step. If we look at ChatGPT, sorry, the clicker is not really. If you look at ChatGPT, I was sitting one day after the launch on a Sunday morning at my breakfast table. For some reason, I was sitting at my laptop, and I found out about ChatGPT. And the first thing I tried is 2 homework assignments of my 2 girls to test it. And I was blown away. It was amazing what this thing was able to. I did a lot of tests before with AI models that came out, but this was really different. I did this with the homework assignments. Afterwards, I asked my kids to come and say, like, is this any good? Like, would you actually submit this? And they were also blown away. And they had two reactions, which I think is the interesting thing. My older daughter is a very good writer. She looked at it and said, it's great, but you know what? It's sort of not very motivating because this thing is pretty good, right? Until now, I was the best in my class in writing. If everyone else has this, I don't know, right? My younger daughter, the only thing she said, like, where's this login for this website? Like, so what I think is really important for communicators to sort of have a basic understanding of what it does, because it gives you an idea what it's capable of and what it's not capable of. So let's take 2 minutes and look how it works. What it works, and it's kind of like the Go play. It does first analyze a lot of data. The current ChatGPT model, which is GPT-4, pretty much has read all English text in the world. All books, all papers, all websites, everything, every digital text that's available is in there. It now does two things. The first thing is this analyzing. And like there are 3 examples of 3 example sentences that it will read. And it breaks them down into individual words. And the big innovation of ChatGPT was originally engineered in 2017, a paper, again, by Google engineers. Google has done a lot in this space for them. And they called a new model and a new approach. They called the transformer approach, which is the T that's in ChatGPT. And the transformer approach says, let's not try to understand these sentences altogether. It's too complex, it takes too long. Let's make this much easier. Let's just always pick 2 words and try to understand what's their relation, what's the attention that they have with each other. That's how they call it, right? And based on this, let's try to find some rules. So out of this, you could find a rule here to say, if there's a pet involved, like an animal, if there's a cat or dog or bird, usually there is an is afterwards, right? The cat is, the dog is, the bird is. That's one rule. Think of this as one rule out of 100 million rules. This is in this model, right? So the model can use these rules to build new content and new sentences. That's the first step. And the second step, now, what AI does, and that's like with the Go play, in the Go play, it played against each other. AI is kind of also playing against each other here, and it's taking training data and it's masking, covering a word. And it's saying the cat is on the, what could be the next thing? And it takes training data, it tries to guess the word based on the rules, and then it looks up and say, oh, was I right or wrong? And based on that, it changes the model. So it plays a million games against itself and tries to understand what could be the next word. And what at the end they've built here is the world's best machine to answer this one simple question. Given the text so far, what should the next word be? And you can actually look this up on ChatGPT. You can take any sentence you have and ask it, what's the next word, right? And for this sentence, the next word, the highest probability is met, right? Next one is rug, bed, couch, table. And we can all imagine there will be a long tail of other words that's coming out of this, right? So based on this, step by step, word by word, a sentence is built. And I brought you a, I think, nice example for it. Let's see. Oh, could we go back, please? One slide. No, one more slide. Please. No, that's not the right one. I really worked hard for this example, so let's try to find the example. Okay. No, okay, it's not working. So I tell you the example. I asked ChatGPT, if I start a sentence and I have nothing, what's the first word? What's the most probable word in English language to start a sentence with? What do you think? The, where? So, and then I said, okay, let's assume the sentence starts with the. What's the second word? What's the second word? Based on all the text in the world, what do you think? It's really hard. I didn't know. The first. It's the first. And I said, okay, let's say the sentence starts with the first. What's the third word? What do you think? The first time, yes. So you get the point. I ask it word for word, and what I'm going to tell you now is the most common, most probable sentence ever to be written based on all English texts in the world. And it's pretty much the first time I cooked pasta. the first time I took, and you can't continue, right? It could be like the first time I cooked pasta in the kitchen, I burned the pasta completely. So that was pretty much the sentence. And the very interesting thing now is, and we could all have predicted there will be a language model, it will be pretty okay, and we'll write sentences. But I think what's stunning all of us, and especially also communicators, is this sort of creativity that this thing has. And it feels so human, right? And the question is like, how is this going to happen? And how is this working? And I think if you understand the probabilities that I've shown you, what they can do now is to say, because if you do a prompt and you get an answer and you do the prompt again, you get a different answer. If you do a prompt, it feels so human and it's changing, right? What is this doing? And if you understand the probability thing, it's pretty easy. They can vary where they say, let's not take the most probable word every time, let's take number 2 or 3, right? The concept inside of ChatGPT is temperature. They say if it's a low temperature, we take the very high probability things. If it's a high temperature, we go wild, and we go a bit more in the least likely ones. And here's the example I brought for you. It's saying, continue the sentence, I love New York with max 10 words and with a temperature of 0. So 0 means very high probability, and it comes up with a very standard, I love New York for its energy, diversity, and opportunity. That's the most likely outcome out of this, right? It's true, but not really exciting. And then you can ask it the same thing and say, now give me a temperature of 100. You can also take other numbers, or you can say, hey, take a word that's more probable or like more engaging and whatever. Let's see what's coming out of this. I'm not trying to read it. But that's the secret, right? That's why it feels so human. It's also, there are other things, you could even say tricks why it feels so human. Did you ever notice if you ask it something, it repeats your question first? There's a lot of research on active listening. We perceive somebody who repeats our questions first as more competent, right? So you automatically think, oh, like it really understood what I said, right? So because it's a repetition. The main learning here is all you get out of this is not true. It's not false. It's not a fact. It's not fiction. It's just the highest probability based on all text that has ever been written in the world. And it presents this with a lot of confidence because it's a mathematical model, but it doesn't have to be true, right? So of course you know that, like a lot of fact checking needs to happen. It's just bringing back the text that's most probably to happen. What I was talking about this is very interesting for communicators. There's some numbers now on this. Jacob Nielsen, if you know him, he's he's a UI researcher for many, many years, I would say the world's most renowned. And he has done some initial research on like what's actually changing in the writing process, and he's saying up to 59% of improvement in the creation of content in this regard. And what I really like about this graphic is this mindset to say it helps you on the brainstorming side, on the drafting side, not so much on the editing side. So editing is still needed, but the whole process is going to change. So that's really something we see also in our research and a lot of the feedback that we get from others. And that's why I can tell you we discussed a lot about staff-based companion, what we want to bring in there. Of course, AI will have downsides. Of course, especially in this regard, if you give this to everyone, will there be more content in the company? I guess so, yeah. So a lot of people can draft more and write more now. Will we enable that? What we want to do is to say, let's open this up a bit. Let's learn what works and what really helps communicators. We are very excited to kind of start this from the brainstorming side, drafting, optimizing, summarizing. And the advertising means really writing better titles and teasers to help have more engaging content for employees. So that's on the writing side. I wanted to point your attention, could we go one back, please? Thank you. I wanted to point your attention to one more thing, which I needed a couple of months to actually find this out for myself. If you're coming and we are all socialized by Google and you say, can I use this for research? To some degree, we all know ChatGPT has data until September 2021, so everything that's newer is obviously not in the model. But let's say you have a topic, frontline workers, turnover frontline workers. Somebody asks you, could you do some research? We are all socialized with Google to go to Google and say, turnover frontline workers, what are some studies? And then you get the results and you go in there and you read the studies and you try to bring this together. It takes about half an hour to an hour to do that. This is really different, and this is really amazing because what you can say, like that's a prompt that worked really well for me. You say, what are the 5 most important studies from the last 10 years or the most recent studies? Give me a table format and give me a summary of the study. Within 1 minute, you get a great summary of a topic, and it has done a lot of research for you. So don't use it like you use Google, but use it a bit more with these more concrete prompts. And these prompts also give us some idea things that skills we all need to develop. To sum this up, on the text side, we see better research, better content creation. Martin talked about the whole summary thing, and especially in an omni-channel platform, we are very excited to reuse content and kind of build it for another thing in the channel. There's already AI things that help you do your job over the past years, like translations got so much better. You are able to enable local editors better. And we will also have this sort of predictive AI more on the comm side, even though it's much more challenging than the generative AI side of things. For employees, there is the whole chatbot thing. So can we have services? Can we have knowledge more readily available for employees? That's something we look at very deeply. And the whole learning environment, we could do a full other conference about learning with AI, because this in-the-moment learning will have a big boost, and that's quite interesting. Negative impacts, there are a couple of them, and I'm sure we will have more in the future that as we learn about this. For me, writing creates a lot of clarity. When I think things are complex, if you write a blog article about this, you are all writers, you will know that. If AI writes for us, where's the clarity coming from? So I think that's a real issue. Comms might not be needed anymore if communication is just thinking about itself as a content creator, to be discussed. And I think for the employee side of things, we see there will be just a lot of content, and we will have an authenticity problem. And I think that's also a very good shift in terms of authenticity to media. The ChatGPT for media is called Midjourney. That's a software that's there to build pictures. Midjourney started and launched in June 2022, not even a year ago, with version 1. And this is what it looked like if you would say, please give me a picture of a woman, right? June 2022. Version 5. Not even a year, right? If you ask about this picture on version 5, like how is this created? How is this working? It's also with prompts. So the prompt for this picture is 1960s street style fashion photo capturing a gorgeous woman with long brown hair, right? So that's the state of things on media. What's interesting, if we change the prompt, and that's why people talk about prompt engineering here, you can write a long prompt as you want, and you can put anything in. You can say the woman should be in Tribeca, she should wear a Gucci dress, soft lighting, and so on and so on. And that's what it does. And the interesting thing here is the programming language for AI. What's the programming language for AI? Plain English language. That you all know the programming language for AI, right? You all storytellers or creators can create whatever they want. You don't need to be a developer, a programmer. That's your language. Whatever you can describe, whatever you can dream of is something you can build now, right? And that's pictures. You could say, okay, maybe video is not so much. Let's look at video where we are.
My name is Rachel, and I'm here to tell you all about how you can create your own AI avatar like me. As you can see, I was created using a combination of cutting-edge AI tools and techniques.
So you might say, Rachel, still, I see she's AI and the way she talks. Like you've seen Midjourney, I would predict 1 year from now, next voices, this sort of avatar will be indistinguishable from a real person, right? Very sure. And the way, if you understand how this is built now, this is built, you can take, let's say, your CEO, record 3 minutes of video, and build out of this avatar in under 5 minutes, right? Two things. No, I know what you're all thinking, right? Like at this point, and this is whenever we talk about AI, it's both emotions, right? You can today, if I have 1 minute of your voice, I can build an AI model, just what you had of Steve Jobs, right? So I guess the voice of your CEOs, your leaders is out there. So everyone out there can take this voice, build an AI model. Then you take this AI model, and I can randomly call all of your employees with the voice of your CEO. And I can say, I'm here at the conference. We are a bit in a hurry. I need 10 $1,000 Amazon gift cards. Could you please send over the codes because we are in a hurry, right? We have this at Staffbase all the time that employees are approached, for instance, like saying, hey, I'm Frank. Could you please do this and that? Imagine it's in the real voice, right? There's going to be a tsunami of fraud coming up. And that's today. In 1 year, this will not be a call, this will be a video call, right? So it's the CEO in the call, undistinguishable, will tell you to send over the Amazon gift cards, right? Very interesting times, and very interesting to discuss how to deal with that. I'll come to that. So that's the state of video. I also want to, like the good and the bad, the good news is the way you deal with media will change. And who's a, like, let's say Adobe Photoshop, who's an expert in Photoshop, please? Like, I'm not. What you will have is all this, that's Adobe. Adobe has an AI called Firefly. What you will have is software where you can do with plain words what it should do. It will be such a big help for you to like deal with media and do things. I think that's really amazing, and that's a good thing to happen. And that's going to happen. It's already happening. And there's one other thing I'm very excited about. I wanted to share with you. Let's see if we can get to it.
Check this out. At no point in this video am I actually looking at the camera. This is a brand new bit of technology called eye contact that's been developed by NVIDIA. It's currently in beta and it uses machine learning AI technology to make it look as if I'm looking straight down the lens, and I'm not. And this feels like magic.
Imagine you have a leader who doesn't like video. I guess you all know leaders who don't like video. A leader that doesn't like video, you can give them a script to help. Have the script beside the camera and have exactly this effect. I think that's an amazing technology to have more video, more authentic content of leaders for employees. Really looking forward to something like this coming out. So it's a very good thing that's happening as well here, right? Who has seen the picture of the Pope? Seeing was believing, not anymore. That's the point. There is, in terms of media, content will be indistinguishable what's right or wrong, what's fact or fiction. That's the world we are in. And that's gonna happen. And it's gonna change a lot on how we communicate and how we need to make sure truth is out there and facts are out there in that regard. One big thing that you might expect, like I'm the co-founder of a tech company and I should be excited about tech. I think on the media side of things, like comms is in the non-fiction business, right? There's a lot of things for storytellers, amazing stuff happening, but with a hybrid work, with a lot of virtual stuff, what people are craving, what teams are craving is reality. See people in reality, see real offices, see real stories. So I think we should be very careful in how we use these technologies in our everyday lives, and especially inside the company. That's a picture of Martin somewhere in a video call. You know that, like the more authentic leaders are, the more employees can connect to them. And it will be a big decision. Do you ever open Pandora's box once to say we have an AI voice or avatar inside our company of our leaders to do things? And I actually think we need something probably more like this. And it might be just a part of AI rules that are happening. I think that's a discussion to be done in the next couple of months and weeks. And also very excited and very open and looking forward to discussing with you during the break and here at the conference, like, how do you think about this? And you say, hey, you're way too pessimistic about these stuff. So let's really do that. Regulation will happen. That's maybe as the last point on this one. There's just too much going on. As usual, the US and North America is pretty good at inventing things. Europe is pretty good at regulating things. So the European Commission has an AI guideline for a much longer time, but it's further in the progress. If you read it, it's actually pretty smart. It's pretty good because it really says, like, for some medical things and things are more complicated, like in an aircraft, where do you want to have AI and where not? So this sort of things, it makes a ton of sense. There's also an AI Bill of Rights drafted by the White House right now. So things are going on. There will be regulation. Like I think they are sweating right now quite a lot. To sum this up, in terms of AI, I think very exciting times before we come to the actual things to do. On the text side, on the ChatGPT side, more upsides for comms. On the media side, I see actually a bit more challenges for comms, but also upsides. Like, let's not be like, it's not black and white. I hope that comes across. So what should you do? First, I would say, let's be very positive about progress. And I think that's a very interesting chart. It's the price changes in the United States in the past 20 years. And there's a general trend, industries where regulation plays a big role that are kind of not friendly towards technologies. They get more expensive. things where technology comes in, prices sink, right? So we have healthcare and we have college and the whole training university sector, which got more and more expensive. And there's a lot of people around who say AI will hopefully help us to bring costs down, make the whole society more equal, have better education opportunities for everyone, have better healthcare for everyone, and not just in the US or in North America, but all around the world. So it will play a good role for all of us as consumers. I really, truly believe that. The second one is, if you think about AI and what role does it play in all the industries, I think there's one general rule that's pretty clear now. It won't replace you. Someone using AI might, and I really like this chart about the role of spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel back in the days where the normal accounting role, the bookkeeping role really got down, and a lot of other roles really actually took off. So it's a lot about embracing AI, and that's the main motivation. Here are 5 ways to do this. Dream bigger. We talked about it this morning, and I think that's a picture you've seen before. That's a picture where we talk about, like, for 10 years now in communications, the move from a content creator to a supporter to actually creating impact. The more strategic the role is, the more you are like in a distinguishing factor between AI and yourself. If it's a pure content production role, AI will be a much bigger threat. I think that's number 1. Number 2, if you think about content, fact or fiction, and how you can distinguish that, the major thing to do that will be channels. It's a difference. Did I see the picture somewhere on Twitter, somewhere on LinkedIn, or did it in my intranet where I know I have a team back there that's curating things? Having a trusted channel will be the main difference between being in control and being not in control of things. Number 3, there's a lot of initiatives going on, like in defining AI guidelines. If you think back in the days when we had social media, all the companies started to have social media guidelines and things like that. Get involved in that because I think communications needs to be there. A lot of this is around communication, educating people, especially also security measures. When I talked about the fraud thing, I'm not sure if you've heard about the case. There's a couple of kidnapping cases coming up. Like I record the voice of somebody at social media, build an AI model, call the parents and say, I have your daughter, and want money from them. It's horrible. It's going to happen. And one thing people say, like for instance, in a family, have a code word, right? Somebody calls and you already know, like, okay, if that's the case, what's the code word, for instance? And it's just a small example of things and thinking that families, but also organizations need to think of, like, how do we deal with this new reality and how do we teach people what could actually happen? I think that's very important. That's a role that you can also play. Number 4, just utilize AI. I'm very sure in most of your daily lives, it could save you 1 or 2 hours, maybe a week, maybe more. Utilize that. Really understand what's going on there and test it for yourself. You can do this with ChatGPT, but you can also do this as part of the Staff-Based Companion, which is pretty much using the same technology. But we are very happy to do this through Microsoft to be really enterprise ready on that level. So play with it if you haven't done yet and see where it helps your job. And the last one, even if there's a lot of challenges around this, I think communication should know what's going on. And I hope I've shown you in terms of there's no technical barrier to it. Like, it's language does most of the things there. You can understand that. You have to go there. You should try this out. Try to break your company. Like, try to create a picture that doesn't, that's not good for the company, or a voice model, and show it to your leaders. Educate the company of what's going on. It's never been so easy to be like on the front of a movement and kind of be an ambassador of what AI can change for the good and the better, or the worse. But that's a role that's to be picked now. That's very easy to grab. And one thing about where to learn more about this, I'm actually, in the last year, I became a big Twitter fan. I know there's a lot of bashing around and Elon Musk and Twitter and so on. The best place to learn is actually Twitter, much more than LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, you have a lot of stuff that everyone knows already. If you want to learn about like what's the new tools, what's going on in the industry, use some other tools. I'm not getting money there. Find sources where you find the new tools, where you find experts talking about this, and can learn more about this. It's quite easy to actually do this, and I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for communication. I want to. Oh, could we go one back, please? Thank you. I want to close with Lee Sedol because he retired in 2019. So 3 years after he lost the game, he retired. And he also said he retired because AI is out there and so much better. And he couldn't deal with the thought he's not the best in the world. There's something else that's better than him, right? And I think that's an example for somebody to say, there's something I'm good at, and now AI is coming and taking this away from me. And while this might be a sad story, I think it's not a sad story for communications, because AI is not what you are doing best. AI is not able to do this, right? I really like this quote from an investor here from New York saying, the most important career skill in an AI-powered future might be to be exceptional at dealing with other humans. And I think comms is in the pole position to be in that role. And I think that's why AI for comms is much more exciting than it is scary. Thank you.